He arrived several days earlier and had been waiting since then in order to show his respect and modesty. However, he took too long in deciding to pay Suoping a visit, and he would probably have to wait for another month to meet him. "Have you come to enlighten me?" Suoping asked. He looked at the endless queue outside of the shop. He no longer had to worry about the lack of customers, his only concern was to seize the day and do his best to train more pets. The faster he trained the pets, the more money he could make. "You flatter me. There's nothing I can enlighten you with. In fact, I'm here to ask for your guidance. I'll be eternally in your debt if you can give me some advice when you're free," said Pablo respectfully, lowering his head. Silver light flashed in his palm while he spoke, and a scroll appeared. He handed over the scroll to Suoping and said, "This is an ancient training technique that I acquired from a relic, but it's incomplete. It may be useful to you." Suoping raised his eyebrows. "An ancient training technique?" He became somewhat interested and opened the scroll. Ancient, unrecognizable words appeared on the scroll. But some of them were written in the language of the gods. "Life," he mumbled to himself. That was the only word that Suoping knew. "I don't think there's anything I can teach you. Perhaps I'll consider communicating with you if you find the rest of this technique," said Suoping to Pablo after considering for a moment. Pablo's eyes glittered, but soon his face wore a bitter smile. He replied, "Senior, I've searched for the rest of the scroll for decades, but to no avail. Could you ask for something else? You searched for decades and found nothing? So, you're giving me something that's absolutely useless," said Suoping, narrowing his eyes. Pablo changed his expression and said, "I dare not. I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding. I simply thought that you might be able to find the other pieces of the scroll with your connections. After all, I don't think you'd be interested in anything else that I have." Suoping became friendlier, after seeing his sincere expression. He said, "Fine, do a few things for me if you can't find the rest of the technique, then I'll consider it. I'm all ears." Pablo was rather uneasy. "First, I have a student pet trainer. Help me take care of her and teach her training techniques. You must turn her into a master trainer like yourself as soon as possible," said Suoping. Stunned, Pablo said, "Well, of course, it's up to her whether or not she can grow up into a master trainer, but I will check whether or not you've taught her dutifully," said Suoping. Pablo realized what was going on and said quickly, "I'll definitely teach her and treat her like my own disciple." "All right, the second thing is about the transcendence fruit," Suoping said. "You're the master trainer working for the rein family, right? The pet contest held on Ria is organized by the rein family, and the prizes are also provided by them. Being the family's master trainer, do you have any transcendence fruits?" Pablo's expression changed, not expecting that Suoping would have already figured out his background. He said quickly, "The transcendence fruit tree belongs to the rein family and has a limited yield. I don't get many fruits either. How many do you have?" "Well, F4. Give them to me." Pablo was speechless, he felt like crying. It was quite outrageous for the guy to demand transcendence fruits on their first meeting. Those fruits were so precious that not even Star Lords would ever have enough of them. They were always rare in all the Federation. "Well," Pablo gritted his teeth and said, "I have accumulated these transcendence fruits for years. My plan is to use 2 of them for my pets. If you want some, I can only offer 2 of them." Suoping gazed at him for a moment and nodded. "Fine." Pablo was relieved. He would truly give up networking with this fellow if he asked for more fruits. After all, while the enlightenment of a Grand Master Trainer was precious, 2 transcendence fruits were just as valuable. He could always turn to other Grand Master Trainers if Suoping asked for more. "Senior, do you have any other demands?" Pablo asked prudently, fearing that Suoping would ask for more things. Suoping replied, "That'll be all. Give me the transcendence fruits first." Pablo's lips twitched. Even though Suaping didn't ask for anything else, he was afraid that the latter would go back on his word after taking the transcendence fruits. After taking a long time pondering, Pablo gritted his teeth and took out 2 transcendence fruits from his storage device. "Senior, here they are." They were 2 sealed, delicate boxes. There was no telling what was inside. However, the seals protecting the boxes were black gold and seemed quite luxurious. Suaping's eyes glittered. He accepted the boxes and tore the seals apart. Hardly had the energy on the seals dispersed when Suaping detected an intense fragrance wafting over. He felt so comfortable when he breathed it in that even his head felt a lot clearer. The world in front of his eyes had also become brighter. He could even think much more quickly than before. They truly are transcendence fruits. Suaping peeped at what was inside one of the boxes and then closed it in 0.1 seconds. Still, the dispersing air made the environment much more fragrant. He had searched for the transcendence fruits on the internet. The boxes indeed contained the genuine fruits. Suaping didn't check the second box, quickly putting it away. The spreading fragrance, however, surprised those who were waiting in line. Everyone who smelled the fragrance felt comfortable and their thought processes were much quicker. Pablo and Suaping had been communicating telepathically, so nobody knew that the boxes in Suaping's hands contained transcendence fruits, Ria's ultimate treasures. Seeing that Suaping had accepted the gifts, Pablo asked carefully, "Senior, about your teaching." Suaping smiled and said, "Help me look after my student first. There's no need to be too hasty about us communicating. I won't go back on my word." Pablo was greatly relieved to hear that. He believed that a Grandmaster trainer would never seek to demean himself by going back on his promises. He felt reassured as he pondered over this. It was also understandable that Suaping wouldn't immediately teach him about his Grandmaster experience and knowledge, either. After all, it was unrealistic to be taught everything by such a character in exchange for a mere pair of transcendence fruits. "Senior, call me if you need anything. I live in Wofet City for now and am available anytime," said Pablo courteously. Suaping nodded and asked, "Does the Rein family not blame you for coming to see me?" Pablo quickly replied, "Senior, the Rein family and I are just partners, we're independent from each other. I won't get myself involved with the conflict between you and the Rein family." Suaping realized what was going on and chuckled. "I was just asking. There's no conflict between me and the Reins. They have already apologized to me." Remembering what Suaping did, Pablo could only wear a smile in his heart. The Rein family did give in when Garland was imprisoned. "Yes, you're right. All right, I'll call you when my student is back. I'll be heading back to work." "Senior, I see that you have a lot of customers. I may be able to help if you're too busy to train all the customers' pets," Pablo quickly added, hoping to train pets along with Suaping and witness his expertise. It would also be a great opportunity for them to bond. Suaping asked, "Can you raise a pet to attain a Class A aptitude in one day?" "Well, I don't think so." Suaping shook his head and said, "Forget it then. I can't ruin the reputation of my shop. But I can still help as your assistant." "There's nothing you can do to help." Suaping shook his head. Pablo was at a loss for words and eventually had to give up. He couldn't help? He was more than qualified as an assistant. He believed that the guy simply didn't want him to watch him work. Pablo didn't insist on the matter. He said some final words to Suaping, then turned around and left. The nearby scholarly middle-aged man was deeply awed. He had seen how his teacher had stood respectfully and humbly with his back bent, exactly like he did when in his mentor's presence. It was true that there were always greater experts out there. Why was my teacher so respectful to the guy? Is he a Grandmaster trainer? The scholarly middle-aged man bowed and also said goodbye to Suaping before he left with Pablo. Suaping had accepted the scroll remains of the training technique right before they left. He intended to ask Joanna about it. He could ask around in other cultivation sites if she couldn't recognize the words. Suaping closed the shop as soon as he entered, then summoned the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound. There were only 2 transcendence fruits. After glancing at his pets, Suaping eventually chose the dark dragon hound and the little skeleton. The little skeleton was his primary pet. He had prioritized feeding the little skeleton with all his rare resources to ensure that it continued being the strongest. The Inferno Dragon was good at offense, and the Dark Dragon Hound was good at defense. Since the little skeleton was taking care of the offense, also considering that he was also good at offense, Suaping could entrust the defense duties to the Dark Dragon Hound. "I'll give you fruits when I get more of them," he said to the Inferno Dragon, the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon, and the purple python. The Inferno Dragon uttered a deep roar, showing that it didn't care. The white-scaled dragon reacted rather calmly, as if never having any hope of getting a fruit. While the purple python was greedy, it readily accepted Suaping's explanation in the end. Soon, the 2 boxes were opened, and 2 fruits were revealed, surrounded by a white spiritual energy. The fruits looked like hazy crystals. The energy covering their surfaces made them look quite mysterious. Suaping tossed the fruits to the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound. They quickly swallowed and digested them. The fragrance emanated by the fruits made Suaping and his pets drool, and their minds processed faster. They seemed to have grasped a lot of insights, but it was hard for them to describe their feelings. The little skeleton was the first to change. Its shoulders suddenly cracked, and 2 short bone spikes protruded from them. The spikes were quite aggressive, making it look even more intimidating. On the other side, the dark dragon hound's eyes had also changed. Energy surged in its body, revealing all kinds of pure elemental energy. The energy streams were interweaving as if in the process of evolving. The air of laws was spreading out. In particular, the air of Boom, god of lightning and annihilation, were becoming increasingly denser. The law of solidity that the dark dragon hound had perceived also became more evident. Suaping looked at the little skeleton and found that it was even stronger than before. The changes in its body had been triggered by the advancement of its skills. Suaping displayed its stats panel. The little skeleton had already made significant progress through all the fighting and training in the void debris. Aside from death, a law of the undead it had perceived, it also mastered 4 laws, which allowed it to easily finish off early star state void beasts. Even the ones at the star state's mid-phase would have a hard time killing it. Its bloodline skill had also changed from Bone King's Descent to Bone Demon's Descent. The difference was just 1 word, but Suaping could tell how extraordinary the skill was from how the little skeletons looked. A transcendence fruit is almost as effective as a professional training session. Suaping was definitely astonished. The fruit would only improve the power of understanding, but then the recipient's skills could advance to higher levels. Bone Demon's Descent was no longer a Skeleton King's skill, it was almost like a mutated version. As for the Dark Dragon Hound, Suaping could easily tell that it had attained a deeper understanding of laws. There were also elements of the Wind class which were emitting the aura of laws. Given more time, it could probably come across an epiphany and grasp new laws. If it were able to grasp 5 laws, the pet hound would then become as strong as any mid-phase star state being. No wonder so many people are eager to enter the pet contest. Transcendence fruits are truly fascinating. The Ryans have a tree that yields such fruits. Should I loot it? Suaping's eyes glowed, he was truly tempted. He gave upon further thought, as he had no reason to attack them. They had already paid a price for the precious offense, he would only have a reason to counterattack if they went to him looking for trouble again. I'll win the pet contest and claim the main prize first. I can then negotiate with the Ryan family and exchange the prize for some transcendence fruits. Suaping's eyes flashed. Suaping devoted himself to training again after the Dark Dragon Hound and the little skeleton had thoroughly digested the transcendence fruits. Apart from doing some of the training himself, Suaping asked his clone to train other batches of pets that would only require a normal training. Time flew. Another day arrived. Suaping returned from the cultivation sites. He opened for business in the morning and closed the shop in the afternoon. He then went to the registration office for Wofet's pet contest with the little skeleton and the white-scaled dragon. At least 100,000 people had gathered in the vast square, many carried their pets, having been temporarily miniaturized. Some of the pets stood on the shoulders of their masters like petite elves. "Boss! It's that you?" someone asked, equal parts surprised and suspicious, while Suaping was observing the crowd. He turned around, only to find that it was his customer Phileas. "Hey!" Suaping raised his eyebrows. He remembered the guy as one of the early customers of his shop. What surprised Suaping was that he had made slight changes to his appearance before he left the store, all in order to make himself less attractive. Still, the guy recognized me that easily. "Is it really you? Your clothes look familiar." Phileas was delighted and excited to see Suaping's reaction. He didn't expect to run into the latter in that location. Suaping was undoubtedly the most famous and important person in Wofet City. Being a star state expert supported by a grandmaster trainer, he was someone that not even Ria's ruler would dare to piss. Few were able to meet Suaping, unless they visited his shop for business. Clothes. Suaping looked at his clothes and instantly realized what happened. He was speechless, not expecting to be exposed because of his clothes. He had been paying too much attention to his pets and ignored that detail. "Don't say anything." Phileas nodded excitedly. "Boss, are you here as a judge?" asked Phileas carefully with awe and gratitude in his eyes. He had chosen to continue having his pets trained every time he went to claim them. He already had multiple Class A pets. One of them had been trained 3 times and already had an A and aptitude. That was also why he was confident about entering the contest. Had it not been for Suaping, he wouldn't have dreamed of securing the city-level championship. It was his goal, but he knew that he could hardly accomplish it. However, he was quite confident of his victory at the moment. His family had also found out that he was training his pets in Suaping's shop. This in turn made his position in the family soar. He also received a great amount of money, which allowed him to request professional training for his main pet. The family had also spread the word everywhere. The organizations and moguls who had taken advantage of them earlier had become much more respectful. Other people might have considered him crazy if he would have said it, but Phileas knew that all the changes were caused by the news of him training his pets in Suaping's shop. As long as he had the money, he could choose to continue training every time he claimed his pets. If he gave up that streak, he would have to wait in line if he ever wanted to train his pets again. Considering the current length of the queue outside the shop, how long would he have to wait? "No, I'm here to sign up for the contest," said Suaping. Phileas was baffled by his answer. He asked in a daze, "Why you here to sign up?" "But, no star state pets are allowed to participate in the pet contest," but before he finished, he suddenly realized that Suaping didn't have to use his own pets. The boss could use uncontracted or unowned pets. After all, nobody cared to whom the pets belonged. Phileas suddenly became nervous, as Suaping was obviously going after the championship. Suaping looked at him and shook his head. He didn't say anything to him. At this moment, a soft voice was heard. "Boss!" Suaping was startled by it. He turned around and found that it was Mia. "It's really you, Boss Su." Mia was quite delighted to see Suaping. "Are you here as a judge?" Suaping was at a loss for words. "Why does everyone think I'm a judge? Can't I be a contestant?" Phileas promptly offered to answer the question, seeing that Suaping was silent. Mia found it hard to believe. "Are you really here to participate?" She then realized that her attitude was inappropriate. She quickly smiled and said, "Then, let me congratulate you in advance for your victory, Boss Su. The Transcendence fruit will surely be yours." "Yes." Suaping nodded, not seeing this as flattery, but as fact. Mia became even more envious, seeing how confident Suaping was. She had also gone there to sign up, wanting to have some fun before she returned to her academy. She wasn't really hoping to get a good result. There was also the rise of Class A pets in Wofet City because of Sua Ping's shop. She had Class A pets of her own, but she wasn't confident of beating all the others. She only hoped that her pet could gain more battle experience from the contest. Very soon, the queue progressed and Sua Ping's turn to sign up arrived. He summoned the little skeleton, the dark dragon hound, the inferno dragon, the purple python and the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon. Apart from the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound, his other pets also managed to shock everyone in the surroundings, but then they felt they had overreacted when they saw that the giant beasts were just dragons and pythons with lesser bloodlines. The white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon, however, attracted a lot of attention. Everybody was surprised by the mutant dragon whose scales were all white. There was no telling whether the mutation was good or bad. Some mutations would be regressive and make the creature weaker, which wasn't unusual. Exclamations came from other places. Other people had pets with powerful bloodlines, also drawing the attention of countless people. Are my eyes deceiving me? Does he intend to sign up with that python? It doesn't seem to even be an ocean state beast. Do you see the skeleton over there? Is it even presentable? As far as I recall, there aren't any strong skeleton races, are there? Mia and Phileas were standing next to Sua Ping, both began to sweat after hearing all the whispers. Do they even know whose pets they are questioning? However, the current situation also came as a surprise to them. They had thought that Sua Ping would participate in the contest with other people's pets, but he had actually summoned all his pets. It was quite unusual for a Star State expert to have that many low-level pets. Do you want to sign up? The judge in front of Sua Ping was a Fate State old man, who narrowed his eyes when he saw the battle pets that Sua Ping had summoned, especially the short skeleton in the front of the line. Even though the skeleton didn't unleash any aura, he had goosebumps by merely gazing at it. With its empty eye sockets, it seemed as if a terrifying creature were hiding in those deep, bottomless holes. Yes. Please ask your pet to do a mental engraving. Also, give your pet an awesome name, said the old man. He took out a crystal badge, which was meant to keep a mental mark for the registration. Sua Ping instantly asked the little skeleton to leave a mark on the badge. He thought for a moment and said, "Just call it Little Skeleton." Little Skeleton. The old man was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting Sua Ping to come up with such a random name. However, it was none of his business, so he kept his opinions to himself. He asked, "In what level do you want to participate?" "The Fate State," said Sua Ping. He had already looked up the rules. The little skeleton could be signed up for matches against beasts of higher levels. However, people would only sign them up for same-level matches under normal circumstances, because challenging enemies from higher tiers would likely end up in failure. After all the battle pets in the contest were of high quality. While a pet could secure the championship while being in that level, it might encounter a stronger pet and be defeated, which could also be lethal. Furthermore, many people would even lower the levels of their pets in order to win prizes. Even though it was bad for the pets, they could make up for the loss with the prizes. The exchange was usually profitable in the end. Fate State. The old man slightly narrowed his eyes but wasn't too surprised. The skeleton gave him a very dangerous vibe. He sensed that it was only an ocean state creature, who knew whether or not it was in disguise. The little skeleton was registered right away. Just have it go to the arena when the match begins. Its identity has already been registered, the old man said to Sua Ping. Sure. Sua Ping nodded and then signed up the Dark Dragon Hound and the Inferno Dragon for the Fate State. He later registered the White-Scaled Dragon up for the Void State category. The Purple Python was signed up for the Ocean State. Sua Ping wanted the championships of all the three ranks. The old man taking care of registrations asked, confused, "I don't think your battle pet has reached the Ocean State, has it?" The gap between a Beast King and a beast below it was quite obvious to notice. He didn't think it was a disguise, and found it perplexing that Suaping would still keep low-level pets when he could already control Fate State pets. Shouldn't he have already abandoned them for other Fate State pets? No. Can it be registered? Asked Suaping. The old man didn't expect that he would admit it so frankly. After being stunned for a moment, he frowned and said, "Yes, of course. But I think it will hardly be able to pass, or even survive the screening phase of the match considering the level gap." "Okay then." The old man was speechless after seeing how it seemed that Suaping didn't pay attention to what he had said in the end. He could only shake his head and go through the sign-up process. He was only sorry to see a pet following the wrong master. After going through the pet sign-up, Suaping retrieved his pets and left the queue. Exclamations were heard, coming from the other registration desks. Suaping looked at the source of those shouts, only to see a gigantic dragon covered in black scales that was releasing demonic flames. "It's a demonic extreme Azura dragon. What a rare pet! It's even more horrifying than a vast sky thunderous dragon. I wonder what aptitude it has. I heard that someone assessed a demonic extreme Azura dragon with a straight A aptitude a few days ago. Was it this one?" Many people whispered. Suaping suddenly found the dragon familiar. He soon remembered it had trained before. It was one of his customers' pets. The pet in question had followed the dark dragon hound and the little skeleton like a sidekick would. Suaping shook his head, no longer eager to watch any longer. "Boss, are you going to participate in the contest with those pets?" Phileas and Mia were waiting for Suaping right outside of the crowd. They were quite astonished when they saw the pets summoned by Suaping. None of the other pets seemed to have remarkable bloodlines, with the exception of the mutant vast sky thunderous dragon. "Yes." Suaping didn't talk to them much, simply said, "I have to go back to work. See you tomorrow." There was a lot more that they wanted to say to Suaping, but they didn't dare to ask him to stay, and could only say goodbye. Suaping returned to his shop and continued his training after leaving the registration office. "Which race do you think the words on this piece belong to?" Suaping asked Joanna. Joanna didn't recognize the words etched on the training technique. It was either an incomplete scroll. "They look even more ancient. Maybe someone in the primordial age knows them," Joanna ventured. Suaping was rather tempted. "Even more ancient? Maybe they could be understood by some of the living creatures in the Archean divinity, or the chaotic realm of the undead." Once he found free time available, he could go to the Archean divinity with Joanna and ask around. Soon after, another day arrived. Much fewer customers were waiting outside of the shop at the moment, but the queue was endless. Many of the customers had gone straight to the pet contest venue, but those who knew they couldn't distinguish themselves in that event, were simply waiting dutifully. It was the day of the concert. Suaping returned the trained pets to their respective masters and published the business hours in the afternoon. He closed the shop and sent his pets to the arena in Wofet City. The arena had 3 realms that floated above the city. There was an extremely magnificent mountain inside each of the 3 realms, which could be seen even from the suburbs of Wofet City. Suaping moved closer to the entrance to the realms, which was the central square of Wofet City. It was quite enormous but crowded with people at this moment. Suaping was quite amazed after seeing the number of contestants. The screening phase will last 4 hours. From 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Whoever keeps the flag on the Pet King Mountain and lasts more than 4 hours will be qualified to enter the next phase. The screening phase rule was quite simple and straightforward. Whoever captures the flag would be the winner. It had already been 11 o'clock in the morning. There was only one last hour to go. Suaping had learned the rules in advance, and his pets could enter the competition at any time before 12. Entering the battlefield too early might not necessarily be a good thing. After all, pets had to defend the flag after claiming it. "Let's go in." Suaping instantly summoned his pets and sent them into the battlefield. The purple python and the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon, on the other hand, went towards the void state and the ocean state realms respectively. Their mental marks had been uploaded to those realms. There was no need to confirm their identities again when they touched the boundaries as they flew in. The three realms were star-state devices of the Federation set for the three levels. However, not even an ocean-state being could endure a star-state attack. A lot of pets waiting at the square went and joined the battlefield besides the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound. Many people had made thorough plans. It was better to enter with the best timing than to enter early, as it was harder to defend the flag than to take it. The competition would become fiercer if the pets got in there early. They might as well wait until the situation was stabilized. Look, it's a vast sky thunderous dragon. I think it's a mutant. Someone quickly noticed Suaping's new dragon. After all, it was the most famous battle pet in all of Ria, and a local breed which was the pride of the planet. It will certainly win. I don't think so. It wouldn't have been a problem for any vast sky thunderous dragon to pass the screening phase in the past, but this year is different. You're right. It's especially difficult in Wofet City. Who could say otherwise? Do you know the Pixie Pet Store? My goodness, they raised 100 Class A pets in only a few days. 100? Are you kidding me? The number already reached 1,000. It's more than 1,500 according to the news. At least half of them belong to Wofet City. The Continental News says that Wofet City is an arena for the global finals. Do you know what this means? The local matches will be as fierce as the finals. Tisk, tisk. My cousin's neighbor's friend's sister-in-law's brother-in-law trained his pet in that shop. What a shame. He's a local and has to participate in the contest here. I don't know if he can pass the screening phase that easily by simply having a Class A pet. Suaping heard the whispers and finally realized the turmoil he had caused in Wofet City. However, have I already trained 1,000 pets? I don't think so. What a rumor. Never mind, I should just watch the screening first. His pets would probably keep a low profile, but he forgot to remind them before they left. Suaping was more or less worried. Brother, don't worry. Your mutant vast sky thunderous dragon will likely pass the screening phase. A young man patted Suaping's shoulder and smiled. Don't be intimidated by them. The head count for each level is 500. Even if that shop raised 1,000 Class A pets, there will still be an opening if they're evenly distributed to the three levels. Yes, brother. You will certainly pass. One of the young man's friends smiled at Suaping, too. Well. Suaping didn't know what to say. The two guys seemed to be quite warm and friendly, but what worried him was something else. Would the mountains fall if the boundaries of those realms were destroyed? He looked at the mountains above his head and saw the glittering lights all over each mountain. Each light represented a flag, and the battle pets were fighting for them. The little skeleton and the dark dragon hound had entered the Fate State realm at the same time. The little skeleton, the dark dragon hound and the inferno dragon weren't rare pets, so nobody paid any attention to them. Even if someone saw them, they would simply overlook them. Their auras changed the moment they entered the realms. Their auras were as vast as oceans, filling the entire realms in the blink of an eye. All the pets fighting in the realms were shocked after sensing the domineering and raging auras just then. The pets on the back of the mountain were better off. They didn't stop fighting, even though they felt a strong threat. All the pets around Suaping's, however, turned their heads to look at them. Lightning surged from the Inferno Dragon's eyes, replacing the previous laziness. It became tall and strong, roaring while staring with eyes as deep as abysses. Roar! The roar echoed throughout the world and reached the rest of the universe. The intimidating waves were blocked by the boundaries, but the sound was still able to come out and spread throughout Wofet City. Countless people who were looking up at the realms heard the sound and became shocked. Is it a mutant inferno dragon? It's a lowly dragon that doesn't even have an ocean state bloodline. How can it be this intimidating? Roar! One of the pets countered with a furious roar of its own after hearing the inferno dragon's intimidating roar. The Inferno Dragon instantly felt insulted and provoked by that reply. With lightning arising in its eyes, it stepped forward and flashed toward the pet. Its gigantic body blocked the sunlight, it then smashed the target with its claw. Lightning bolts were swept out like pillars, knocking the pet away from the mountain. The pet reacted fast enough and released two fiery skills that looked like a volcano eruption, but they didn't hurt the Inferno Dragon in the slightest. Just like Suaping, the Inferno Dragon's resistance to fire had already been improved to the highest level. All of the fire class Fate State skills would be weakened by 70%. Only the fire skills that contained the power of laws would have a chance to hurt it. It was gravely wounded by one strike. Oh my god, what's with that dragon? The fire demon Crescent Moon Dragons is very close in power to the vast sky thunderous dragons, and it has a Class A aptitude. Yes, it was unstoppable and invincible on the mountain just now. How could it be wounded to such a degree after a single strike? Many people were astonished by the scene. The dragon that had been knocked away by the Inferno Dragon had multiple huge bleeding wounds and it currently lay crumpled in a pool of blood. Its central nerves seemed to have been hit, it wasn't able to get back to its feet after a long time. It was convulsing because the Inferno Dragon's attack contained the power of lightning. Even though it had not released a complete law, the energy contained was still considerably more paralyzing than most of the lightning skills of Fate State beings. The pets around the Inferno Dragon were all appalled to see this happen. They had already reached the Fate State and were smart enough, they could naturally tell that such a dragon was even more horrifying than all the other pets they had seen in the competition. Roar! The Inferno Dragon plucked the flag from the ground with its sharp claw and roared. The pets around it were instantly panicked and scared off, not daring to stay any longer. The little skeleton and the dark dragon hound also walked toward the mountains at that moment. They swiftly reached the foot of the mountains. The competitions here were quite fierce, some pets dashed over to finish them off as soon as they saw them approaching. The little skeleton stood still, simply drawing its saber. Then, it slashed out. The mountain in front of them trembled. Then, an unbelievable scene happened. The entire mountain fell apart. Even the air had been cut apart where the mountain was fractured, not healing until a long time later. The nearby air had been obliterated. There had been countless pets competing fiercely on the mountain, cracks began to spread from the foot to the peak, making the entire city fall quiet. The pets that were about to attack them were frozen on the spot. Jittery-eyed, they were as terrified as they could be. Even the ordinary people watching the contest were also astounded. What kind of power could have cut apart the void and the divine mountain? The audience in the square who had been discussing which pet would claim the most flags fell quiet too. The two young men who had comforted Suaping looked at the scene in shock. They both remembered that the little skeleton and the Inferno Dragon were Suaping's pets. They had thought that those pets would only be toys on the battlefield, but they turned out to be utterly horrifying. Well, lucky for me. They didn't use the complete laws. Suaping was more or less relieved to see the attack. The entire realm would have been heavily struck if the complete law of annihilation were used. He would have had to make an opening to the secondary space and direct the falling mountain into it, or countless people would have been killed. He had stayed there mainly because he feared that his pets would go overboard and cause disasters. Otherwise, he could have returned to his shop to mind the shop. Even Star State opponents could have hardly stopped his pets after he passed the power of laws to them. Suaping was no longer worried about sending them anywhere within Ria. Pets could be set free if they were strong enough, not needing to keep an eye on them. Still, most battle pet warriors didn't keep their pets close to look after them, but for their own protection. After all, a battle pet warrior's combat ability was mostly based on the pets owned. Right then on the divine mountain within the realm, the little skeleton had already placed its bone saber back in its hip, the saber looked like one of its own bones. It then walked forward. The pets that had been fighting fiercely moments before seemed to have frozen, not even daring to tremble. Some of the pets recognized that the little skeleton was exactly the pet that they had met during their nightmarish training. It's the demonic pet. Their eyes large and small, and differently colored gazed at the little skeleton in fear. The little skeleton moved closer to the mountain, it willed all the visible flags to float toward itself. The flags then fluttered behind it, making it look domineering and superior. The pet seemed to be standing on top of everybody else. Regardless of its short and tiny build, it was the center of attention in the entire city. Hundreds of thousands of people were watching it. More and more flags were flying over and fluttering against the wind. Some of the flags had already been caught or bitten by other pets, but none of those pets dared to struggle against the little skeleton's pulling force. The dark dragon hound had simply tagged along. It was quite happy since it didn't need to do anything. The dog was too proud to show its skills in front of those enemies. It had even confronted a row of Star State enemies. Those little guys in the competition were nothing in comparison. All the pets moved back and made way for the little skeleton as it made its way toward the mountain. There was a golden scaled dragon among them. It was angered when the 5 flags underneath its feet were taken away, so it snarled to intimidate the enemy. Enough! You already have a lot of flags. Aren't you satisfied already? It was an almighty holy golden dragon with a Star State bloodline. It felt that its dignity would be sullied if it didn't do anything. The little skeleton slowly paused and turned its head after hearing the snarling. The holy golden dragon instantly sensed death, as if struck by lightning. The picture of its head being chopped off and its body falling apart popped up in front of its eyes. The picture was vivid, disappearing only a moment later. Its heart pounded when everything was back to normal. The little skeleton quickly expanded, becoming a giant in its eyes, so it could only look down. The flags underneath its feet were soon pulled again. This time, the holy golden dragon lowered its head, not daring to stop them anymore. It was truly scared. It had been intimidated after just a quick glance. That was a bone demon that couldn't be provoked. The little skeleton withdrew its gaze after snatching the 5 flags, then continued walking towards the mountaintop. Since it was already there, it would hesitate to defeat all the enemies and stand proudly on the mountaintop. Seeing the little skeleton, the Inferno dragon joined it and followed while carrying the flags it had just taken. The 3 of them walked to the mountaintop together, attracting more flags from their surroundings. Roar! A demon pet was finally triggered when the little skeleton was robbing it of its 12 flags. Fog surged out of its body, and it was able to flee with the flags. But the next moment, the fog was cut apart, and it was flung out to a corner on the mountain. It was dying. It was just one strike, and nobody saw how the little skeleton had attacked it. The 12 flags flew to the little skeleton's back, and they kept moving forward. The skeleton walked toward the mountaintop one step after the other. All the beasts in its way quickly fell back. Those who were reluctant to give in were crushed with one strike. The Fate State realm where everybody was fighting fiercely suddenly became a solo run. Everybody who saw this was too shocked to form words. The little skeleton had shown a strength much greater than that of any other pets on the mountain. Invincible. What aptitudes does the pet have? What is its bloodline and species? Nobody knew. Phileas and Mia also arrived at the square. Their pets were in the arenas for the Void and Ocean states respectively. Both of them were at the Ocean state, and neither had Fate State pets. Both were stunned after seeing the situation in the Fate State arena. Are they Suaping's pets? Shouldn't they be Ocean state creatures? Were it not for the fact that the realm's boundaries wouldn't have allowed higher-tiered pets, they would have thought that the little skeleton was a Star State pet. Only Star State pets could have crushed their opponents that easily. Both felt their world had been turned upside down as they watched the A, or even A and pets shiver and abandon their flags in front of the little skeleton. There was even a Class A Vast Sky Thunderous Dragon among them. Few beasts of the same rank could defeat it, not to mention that it was an ultimate Vast Sky Thunderous Dragon with a straight A aptitude. I think I saw this little skeleton yesterday. What little skeleton? This is a Bone King. It's so horrifying. Is it the Skeleton King's descendant? But not even a Skeleton King's descendant can go head-to-head with a Vast Sky Thunderous Dragon underneath the Star State. right? It didn't take long for everybody to finally realize what was going on. Skeletons were weak in the first place. Even though the skeleton kings were strong, they weren't as monstrous during their growing stage. Well, I told it to take the flags but didn't specify how many. Is it going to take all the flags? Suaping was at a loss for words when he saw the little skeleton robbing other pets of their flags. It had obviously misunderstood his instructions. He instantly sent a telepathic message via the contract, asking it to keep only 3 flags. The additional flags would be useless, and would only deprive other pets of their chance to advance. Suaping was stunned after he sent out the message. Hey, it's blocked? He felt that his message had been blocked by a power, preventing it from being transmitted to the little skeleton. He slapped his head and realized that the special arena would block the Battle Pet Warriors' messages. Otherwise, Battle Pet Warriors could have controlled the pets from outside the arena via telepathic messages. It was a competition for pets alone. Well. Oh no. Suaping didn't know what to say as he watched the little skeleton looting more and more flags. He could almost imagine what would happen next. More importantly, did the purple python and the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon misunderstand him, too? Most beasts stayed out of their way. Some of the aggressive ones tried to stop them, but they were knocked off the mountain and left with broken bones by the Inferno dragon before the little skeleton did anything. The little skeleton soon reached the mountaintop. It had looted so many flags that all of them fluttered behind its back like 10,000 arrows ready to be launched. Countless battle pets inside the realm looked up at the scene up on the mountaintop. So many flags were there, but nobody dared to claim them. The 3 beasts, 2 tall and 1 short, looked down at all the other creatures below. All the flags have been taken. Are they going to be the only 3 that qualify? Only those 3 will pass the preliminaries. Well. The audience in the city was so shocked to see this that they weren't sure about what to say. Right then, another roar burst out of the void state realm. Everybody looked at the source of the roar, only to be dumbfounded yet again. A vast sky thunderous dragon with white scales was flapping its wings and raging throughout that smaller realm. It had attracted dozens of flags with its astral power, which flew behind it like erected scales. Those flags had been enhanced by the power of laws and were virtually indestructible. All the flags on the mountain were plucked and dragged to the vast sky thunderous dragon's back as it charged forward. Many pets tried to compete against it, but they were all flung back by lightning bolts. My vast sky thunderous dragon! My Azure magic sickle! What kind of mutant is this? It's so horrifying! The whole city burst into an uproar when they saw that. Both Phileas and Mia were stupefied. Their pets had also been defeated by Suapings, much more easily than they had expected. They were definitely not on the same level. It had to be noted that their pets had been trained in Suaping's shop, and they were boasting ultimate bloodlines to boot. And yet, they were trounced like straws at that moment. They were unable to put up any resistance. A lot of battle pets charged forward, but all of them were easily crushed by the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon with the power of lightning. 1 against 100. Not even Fate State pets are able to do that. Is that dragon a Class S super pet? I don't think it's merely a Class S. All the other contenders are excellent pets of higher qualities, but they can't defeat it, not even when working together. It's so strong. It's dominating the battlefield. Do this dragon and that skeleton belong to the same person? As the battle in the void state realm became fiercer, everybody was so dumbfounded that they were eventually unable to utter a word. The pet was crushing all the competition, just like a void state being would crush a bunch of apprentices. The popular battle pets that people were betting on had been easily routed on the battlefield. Their skills were completely unable to hurt the white-scaled dragon. In the meantime, someone soon discovered that something similar was happening in the ocean state realm. A giant serpent was slithering in an imposing manner, as if about to swallow the sky, and whipping all the pets in its way towards the mountain peak. It claimed all the flags it saw and placed them on its back like sharp spikes. The scenario was repeated in all three realms. The intense competitions turned into one-sided battles. The Ocean State realm only had that giant serpent as the unique hero. It endured many powerful skills with nothing but its body, demonstrating an impervious defense. In the Void State realm, the mutant Vast Sky Thunderous Dragon suppressed all the other pets with the gravitas of a true dragon. In the crowd, Mia was dumbfounded as she looked at the scene. Is his boss so going to make his pets claim all the qualifications? She did not expect this. She had seen her fair share of powerhouses since she was a student at the Amir Royal Academy, but she was still astounded by the situation. On the other hand, Phileas was almost crying. His pet had been trained multiple times in Suo Ping's shop, but it gave its flag away and chickened out the moment it saw the white-scaled Vast Sky Thunderous Dragon, not even having the courage to fight against it. He remembered never having seen his pet act this cowardly before the training. It had always been brutal and aggressive, but it became a fraidy cat all of a sudden. His estimation was to make it to the top 3 or top 5 in the city. However, it seemed that he would hardly pass the screening phase. What happened inside the three realms had shocked everyone in Wofet City. Such a turn of events was unprecedented. At the square, the contestants who had intended to participate at the last moment didn't know what to do. All flags had been claimed. Even if they sent their pets in, they would be unable to reverse the outcome. As time went by, the three realms gradually fell quiet, and the three mountains were occupied. All the flags inside the realms were claimed and concentrated on the three battle pets. The other battle pets had gathered in the middle of the mountains but didn't dare go to the top. Some pets couldn't hold it any longer and marched to the mountaintop, only to be beaten back miserably. The fierce screening had instantly turned into a silent confrontation. The office responsible for the citywide pet contest rounds received countless complaints and protests. They were sent by anonymous contestants, who protested against the unreasonable behavior in the contest. All the flags had been claimed, their Class A battle pets didn't even pass the screening phase. It was outrageous. Mr. Mayor, what do we do now? The office director was panicking, as this had never happened before. They had made plans for every possible emergency scenario during the contest, but they never thought that a single battle pet would claim all the flags. The maximum number of flags that a pet can carry had never been restricted in earlier contests. The strongest pets had the right to loot more flags. They could always fight back if the other pets were unwilling to give in. But then, several pets were much stronger than all the others that had emerged. How should the contest continue? The mayor also seemed to be panicking as he looked at the director. The shock made it difficult for him to utter a single word. He had foreseen the fierceness of the pet competition in Wofet City. After all, many Class A pets had popped up in recent days. Their battles could turn into massive events. But, as things turned out, those Class A pets were suppressed. They ended up being unable to pass the screening. Considering the situation, they would only be a few winners in the screening phase. The city preliminaries would come after the screening rounds ended. But, if there were only a few winners, would the preliminaries be really necessary? He felt that the pets occupying the mountains could be the champions of their respective ranks even in the global finals. Millie, find out who these battle pets belong to, whispered the mayor. A sexy girl in pretty clothes nodded next to him and then disappeared. Time was still flowing at a slow trickle as the moment, people were heatedly discussing the situation everywhere. Someone complained about the battle pets, claiming it was unfair that they deprived other pets of the opportunity of passing the screening phase. Another person disagreed. There wasn't a rule regarding the maximum number of flags that a pet could carry. Who says they can't claim all the flags? Noon had almost arrived. The girl returned to see the mayor and said, "Mr. Mayor, based on what I found, those pets belong to the same person. He is none other than the owner of the Pixie Pet Store." She raised her head as she spoke, giving a weird look at the old man. The mayor was stunned. They belong to the same person? And the person is that guy? Isn't that guy a Star State big shot who captured Garland alive? How come he has such low-level pets? The mayor turned back and looked at the woman. Are you sure? Absolutely. The mayor fell silent. He suddenly remembered that the guy was a pet store owner. Did the guy train those pets specifically to win the global championships? Is he doing all this in order to get the transcendence fruit? The mayor realized what was going on and heaved a sigh. The whole thing was too tricky. Considering the person's identity, the mayor had to abandon all the countermeasures he had devised. He had to come to terms with the outcome. Changing the rules on the go might anger that star-state bigshot, and the man's fury would be too much for him or even the Ryan family to endure. The rumors of a grandmaster trainer had already terrified him in recent days. Wofat City belonged to him. He hadn't slept well for days, fearing that someone might pop up and infuriate the grandmaster trainer from that shop. If such a powerhouse was enraged, not just him, the entire planet might suffer. Make a new rule for the preliminaries. Cancel the preliminaries if no more than 10 battle pets pass the screening phase, letting the winners go directly to the global finals, instructed the mayor. The director was rather stunned at first, but then he realized what it meant. He eventually relaxed while still harboring mixed feelings. Those who weren't powerful had to follow rules. But the powerful were able to bend the rules. At noon, the screening phase was finally over. Some of the pets inside the 3 realms joined hands in the last 5 minutes, ready to charge toward the mountaintops and fight for the flags. Still, their attempts became brutal failures. Nothing changed the final results. Suaping's pets crushed the rest of the pets and claimed all the flags. The screening phase was over. He was speechless. He was to blame since he had not explained the situation clearly to his pets. The outcome made him look excessively arrogant. However, he somehow felt comforted after seeing that his pets were looking down at the battle pets that were popular in the Federation. Once upon a time, the Dark Dragon Hound had been a lowly, abandoned moon-chasing hound, and the little skeleton was just a second-rank skeleton that would supposedly be forever unable to advance to a higher level in its entire life. While the Inferno Dragon had a better bloodline, it was only restricted to the ocean state. It didn't even have a king-level bloodline. They had risen to prominence at that moment. Even in the vast Federation, they could still distinguish themselves from the pets of the same level. Suaping felt like a father witnessing the growth of his children, seeing how awesome they were. The referees were already in position outside the realms, ready to count the flags that each pet had claimed, to make a list of those who made the cut for the preliminaries. Counting? No counting was needed. There were even more referees than winners. They had to be courteous, since they had heard word that the winning pets belonged to a star-state bigshot. Soon after, it was time to check the final score. The referees instantly announced under everybody's watch, "Those who carry flags, step forward." The announcement contained mental power. Even beasts and birds were able to understand. All the pets inside the 3 realms were dumbfounded as they looked at the mountaintop. Inside the ocean state realm, the purple python slightly craned its head while waiting at the mountaintop. It had easily defeated all the pets that intended to compete with it. Once it heard the announcement, it looked outside the realm and then slithered down the mountain with hundreds of flags on its back. All the pets in its way cleared a path. They were jealous and angry as they saw the flags on its back, but nobody dared to do anything. The gap between them was too vast. There were some of A and vast sky thunderous dragons that could fight against fate state beasts, but even them had been crushed by the purple python with one swing of its tail. The power of lightning that its tail contained had shattered their skin, causing an excruciating pain. Nobody dared to try again. It didn't take long for the purple python to exit the realm. On the other hand, the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon flew down from the mountain and then left the realm with countless flags while other pets looked at it regretfully. Inside the fate state zone, the little skeleton, the dark dragon hound and the inferno dragon swaggered off the mountain. As they made their way down, a fate state pet tried to ambush them to loot a flag. However, before it even approached the little skeleton, the Inferno dragon had laid a claw on its head and pressed it into the ground. It was then thrown away, heavily wounded. Such a great force extinguished the remaining fighting spirit of the other battle pets, which could only look as the winners left the realm. The faces of the 3 Fate State referees outside the realm showed a slight change, even they felt greatly threatened by the dragon. The battle pets left the realm soon after. Once they left, a few battle pets flew out and took flags out of their bodies to prove their achievements. They had claimed some flags a long time before the little skeleton and the others entered the arena. No one had noticed they had been hiding the flags in their bodies. There were a lot of such pets, 30 of them in total flew out of the 3 realms. They didn't dare to leave until the dominators made their exit, fearing that their flags would be snatched. The referees were at a loss for words, seeing how cautious the pets were. They could definitely imagine the pressure they had endured. The qualified battle pets were quickly tallied. There were 42 in total. That was not a bad number, unlike most people had expected. Not all the pets failed. Still, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry, as it was the pet contest with the least winners in that phase. Aside from that, that screening phase was as spectacular as the finals. Every king of the mountain had the potential to become the global champion of their level. Once the screening phase ended, the rules and time for the preliminaries were announced. They would be held the following day. The rule was simple, just like before. A pet's opponent would be chosen by drawing lots. There would be 8 arenas as battlefields. The previous preliminaries would usually take half a month to present the city's top 10. However, considering the small number of participants, those preliminaries would probably be over in a day. Suoping was greatly relaxed once he saw that the screening phase had reached a safe conclusion. He was glad that no trouble had been caused. It would have been awkward if any of his pets would have destroyed the arena. Let's go back. Suoping spoke to his pets, then sent them back to the contract space remotely when they got closer. A lot of people had been staring at his pets. If Suoping would have allowed them to reach him, he would have immediately become the center of public attention, and that fake ordinary face of his would hit the headlines throughout the camp continent. Becoming famous could be rewarding, but Suoping's shop was already popular enough. He would rather not have too many paparazzi following him as if he were a monkey. Suoping quickly left the square after getting his pets. The square burst into an uproar after the little skeleton, the Inferno dragon and the other winners disappeared. Someone noticed a detail. Those pets were absorbed into their pet space at the same time. Coincidence? Highly unlikely. The only possible explanation was that those pets belonged to the same master. That information was so shocking that many felt as if they were burning with excitement. To own any of those pets would be a major achievement in life, not to mention owning all of them. Almost all of those ultimate pets were Class S, and yet they belonged to the same person. Who could be so awesome? The news quickly spread. Wofet City media went crazy and placed the screening phase of the contest on their headlines. Shocking! 3 majestic battle pets dominated the screening phase. Very likely Class S. Unprecedented. Unknown mysterious battle pets appeared in the screening phase and claimed all flags. Ultra S battle pets have emerged. Legendary top battle pets have appeared in the screening phase. The shocking news spread out throughout Wofet City in only one afternoon. It continued spreading to other cities in the camp continent. Videos, pictures, and analyses of professional pet appraisers were disseminated with the title Ultra S. The entire camp continent was seething. Countless people went to Wofet City, hoping to watch the preliminaries of the Ultra S battle pets. In addition, certain well-informed cross-continental forces and organizations as well as some ancient Fate State families on Rhea had learned the news from their respective intelligence networks. All the forces that were aiming to get the Transcendence fruit fell quiet. In the Middle Continent at their base, the leaders of the Rein family were shocked beyond words after learning the latest news. The footage of the contest almost seemed fake. The events had been utterly incredible. In particular, the intelligence they had acquired said that dozens of Class A pets had participated in the screening. Most had been either dragons or demons, and tricky in their rank. They also had Class A aptitudes, their competition was supposed to be fierce. However, all those alleged badasses had been suppressed. On a mountaintop, in a mysterious realm, several men were seated inside a house. Pablo was watching a holograph in shock. "Master Pablo, what do you think?" "I'm almost certain. They might even be SS pets." He couldn't be mistaken. Even though the little skeleton hadn't done a lot of things, its slashing attack had definitely carried the power of the star state. However, the fact that it had been able to enter the special realm suggested that it couldn't be a star state creature. That is, unless it had a secret technique that had never appeared in the Federation. But that was highly unlikely. The Federation was too vast. Its territory included countless galaxies, too many ancient relics and mysterious realms had been excavated. If the pet had used a secret technique yet to be registered in the Federation's database, that technique itself would have been horrifyingly valuable. It's only a fate state beast, it can fight star state enemies. O'Neill was both shocked and solemn. He had vaguely noticed from the holograph that the slash contained the power of laws. It meant that the skeleton could have mastered laws. No wonder it crushed the other pets. It was like bullying kindergartners. Unfortunately, he hadn't gone to the battlefield, so he wasn't sure of his findings. After all, it was impossible to feel the power of laws from a holograph. At this moment, someone exclaimed in shock, how is it possible?" O'Neill turned back and found that it was Garland. He knew that the latter always kept his cool. It was rather unbelievable to see him falter. "What's wrong?" O'Neill asked, visibly confused. "Was that?" Garland turned around and looked at the woman in black and the old man next to him, who had joined him to fight against Suaping. Suaping had summoned 3 battle pets during their battle, which were the little skeleton, the dragon, and the dog in the Fate State Zone. The 3 pets had shown a remarkable star state combat ability in the battle against them. And yet, they had been able to enter the realm? They were only at the Fate State? Not just Garland, the woman, and the old man were also stunned when they watched the video. They sat on the couch, not knowing what to say. Did the realm identifiers malfunction?" asked the old man after a long time passed. O'Neill frowned once he saw their reaction. He said, "No, I had someone inspect the realms." "Why? Do you know the pets?" The old man parted his mouth ever so slightly, but he didn't know how to describe the matter. He smiled bitterly and retold what had happened earlier. He said, "This is what happened." The room was caught in a dead silence. Both O'Neill and Pablo were stunned. Some Fate State battle pets had fought against a true Star State warrior and held their ground? The whole thing makes sense if the man is backed by a Grandmaster trainer. Pablo mumbled. His eyes were filled with passion. He was 100% sure that there was a Grandmaster trainer in the shop. Only Grandmaster trainers could have endowed Fate State pets with the power of laws and make them as strong as Star State creatures. Everybody was silent in the room after hearing what Pablo said. It wasn't until half a minute later that O'Neill finally took a deep breath and said, "I'm glad we didn't do anything recklessly. It would have been a shame to piss him off just because of Randall." The Rein family had been standing on Rhea for 1,000 years. They had received countless honorable guests and offended some tough figures, but they had never made any grave mistakes, until they met this man. The influence of a Grandmaster trainer could easily overturn the Rein family and reduce it to dust. "O'Neill, he wants the Transcendence fruit. Do you think we should offer him one as compensation?" suggested the old man. O'Neill was stunned for a moment and fell into deep thought. A few minutes later, he heaved another sigh and said regretfully, "Having reached this point, the last thing we should care about is keeping appearances. A Grandmaster trainer is worth making friends with. I also believe he'll be happy to talk to us if we are proactive in showing our friendliness." Garland and the black-haired woman were rather surprised, not expecting the tough man to yield. However, it did make sense. Even the lord of a Tier 1 planet would probably bow to a Grandmaster trainer, 2. It's very considerate of you, Chief, Pablo nodded and said, I can hand the gifts to him. Of course you can. O'Neill looked at him, not saying anything. You sly old fox, do you think we don't know that you visited him? You want to impress him with a gift from the Ryan family? Nice try. Thank you, Master, but it won't be unnecessary. Since we're trying to make friends with him, I should go there in person to show my respect. I can also get other things done once I make the trip over, said O'Neill courteously. Regret flashed in Pablo's eyes. He had indeed planned to visit Suaping again through that opportunity, so that they would become closer. Other things. Garland was stunned and looked at O'Neill. He instantly realized what the man was talking about and heaved a sigh, knowing that the latter was probably going to make a real effort in trying to make friends with Suaping by sharing such important intelligence. However, even if he didn't, Suaping had already joined the Alliance of Stars and would learn of it sooner or later. So, might as well impress him by telling him in advance. Pixie Pet Store. Suaping had returned from the square. He tore space open and appeared in his shop. Although flight was forbidden in Wofet City, traveling through space was allowed, that was the privilege of void state experts. Of course, you could also indulge in such privilege if you could tear space open before you reached the void state. Once flashing back to his store, Suaping summoned his pets and had them rest in the advanced nursing pens. He then asked Tang Ruyan and Zhong Lingtong to open the store. It's open. It's open. It's finally back in business. I've contacted my family and I'm ready to sell my house. I'll train all my pets even if I have to spend all my money. The skeleton and the dragon back in the screening phase gave me goosebumps. They're so powerful. I would never have to train for the rest of my life if I had such pets. That's true. Those pets are definitely S-class or even Ultra S. Even Star Lords would have fought for them. If those pets have star state or better bloodlines, they're probably as valuable as half a galaxy. I heard that there's also professional training available, it costs 10 billion. Pets attain Class A with normal training. Would they become Class S battle pets with professional training? Everybody was whispering outside the shop. The screening battle which had taken place right above them got them all excited. Battle pet warriors were mostly devoted to battle pets, especially the rare ones and those with high aptitude. The previous battle was a great eye-opener for them. They almost wanted to shove away the people ahead of them and purchase the best training with all the money they had whenever they thought that a Grandmaster trainer was in Suaping's shop. After seeing Suaping back in the shop, Tang Ruyan remarked in shock after overcoming her dazed state, "Your pets have become really strong." She had also seen what had happened through the window, and she was as dumbfounded as Zhong Lingtong. Unlike other people, they recognized that the pets belonged to Suaping. As for those pets, Tang Ruyan remembered that they only had titled rank compatibility when she first got acquainted with Suaping. Even though they had been growing fast, they had only demonstrated fate state power in the Abyss battle on the blue planet. Still, after barely half a month, they had become strong enough to subdue fate state pets. It was also obvious that they had never shown their real power in battle. Such a growth speed was appalling. "I'm a trainer. It's only natural for them to grow stronger," said Suaping casually. Zhong Lingtong's round face glowed. Even though she wasn't able to gauge how good Suaping was among the trainers in the Federation, he was undoubtedly better than the Holy Spirit trainers on the blue planet. Her family would have never imagined her studying under such a strong master. "Open the shop. You should help too. I'll ask a master trainer to teach you the basics, so that you'll become familiar with the knowledge of the Federation," said Suaping. Zhong Lingtong snapped out of her reverie and nodded quickly. She was reminded of the 8th rank master trainers when Suaping mentioned the master trainer term, but that was just a title on the blue planet. She was already half a Holy Spirit trainer, it was unlikely that Suaping would ask such a low-level trainer to teach her. Zhong Lingtong was obedient, she never asked about things beyond her, because she knew she would eventually understand. Tang Ruyan looked at Suoping with mixed feelings. She had witnessed that man's growth since she had been caught, being perfected and becoming stronger like a rare treasure. Even she felt more or less eclipsed in front of him. She suddenly sympathized with Suoping's sister. That girl had always been quite stubborn, probably because she had such a distinguished brother. She didn't want to surpass him, she simply wanted to catch up with him. If you're walking ahead of me, I only hope that someday I can keep up with your shadow. The store opened for business. All the customers acted obediently, all thanks to Tang Ruyan and Zhong Lingtong's hospitality, adding Suoping's intimidation. They were excited but none dared to show it. Everyone was lined up before the counter in an orderly fashion. Suoping received them one by one, registering their names and collecting money from them. To Suoping's surprise, 4 of the customers chose professional training. The 4 men alone had provided 40 billion astral coins, which meant 400 million energy points. Suoping had only received close to 20 customers in total. Each had requested training for a handful of pets, while others even left more than 10 of them. Suoping's storage was soon full. Then, Suoping asked Tang Ruyan to inform the other customers that the shop was closed. Some visitors arrived before they closed the door. After being notified by Tang Ruyan, Suoping walked out of the shop and saw Pablo, whom he had seen the previous day. The man was accompanied by someone he was familiar with. It was none other than Garland, whom he had held captive earlier. Hey! Standing beside Garland was a brawny middle-aged man who wore purple nobility attire. He seemed elegant and graceful. His hat covered half of his face, but resolve and firmness were still evident. Mr. Su, he is O'Neill, leader of the Rein family, said Garland telepathically, while still harboring mixed feelings. Suoping was briefly stunned, not expecting the most powerful man on Ria to visit his shop. Okay. He nodded. He didn't greet him just yet, not knowing why the man was there. Mr. Su, nice to meet you. O'Neill slightly raised his head, showing the stubbles on his cheeks. It was obvious that he must have been very handsome when he was young. Senior Grandmaster, greetings. The nearby Pablo spoke respectfully through telepathy. O'Neill was about to confess the purpose of his visit. He was confused after hearing what Pablo said. A moment later, he couldn't help but feel greatly shocked when he saw that Pablo's respect was directed towards Suoping. Grandmaster? This young man is the Grandmaster trainer of this shop? But, wasn't he the battle pet warrior who fought against Garland and his fellows, defeating all of them in the end? Not just O'Neill, Garland also looked at Pablo in shock. Okay. Suoping nodded and simply went straight to the point. Is there anything I can help you with? O'Neill snapped out of his shock, but he was still shaken by the revelation. He only knew that Suoping was being backed by a Grandmaster trainer, but he didn't know that the Grandmaster trainer was Suoping himself. He was both a Grandmaster trainer and a warrior with Star State combat abilities. Right, Grandmaster trainers were at least at the Star State, fighting wasn't the guy's specialty. Being a Grandmaster trainer was his main focus. O'Neill began to perspire cold sweat. He felt that his back was chilly when he remembered that his grandson had tried to rob a Grandmaster trainer of his pet. Senior Grandmaster, I'm here to apologize to you on behalf of my unworthy grandson, said O'Neill sincerely, lowering his head. Although he had already sent someone to apologize on his behalf, he decided to apologize again, as the man's identity was too important. That matter has already been taken care of. I won't do anything as long as the Ryan family doesn't offend me again, said Suoping, as if already aware of what they had visited him. O'Neill looked at him, not seeing any anger on his face. He was finally more or less relaxed. He said, I'm here partly to apologize, and partly because I learned that you're a Grandmaster trainer. It just so happens that our family has a 30,000-year transcendence tree. The tree blooms and bears fruit every 500 years. Those fruits are extremely rare. I've specifically brought 2 of them to you. I hope you can accept them. He took out 2 black and golden boxes as he spoke. They had seals to prevent the energy from leaking. Suaping was slightly surprised, not expecting the guy to show up bearing gifts. The guy was also offering him the transcendence fruits he desired to find. Those fruits also existed in cultivation sites, but he had yet to find the right cultivation site to look for them. It was hard for him to stumble upon those fruits if he didn't have any directions. "I'll take them then." Suaping chuckled. He didn't examine the fruits. It was unlikely that the fruits were fake, since they had gone there specially to offer them as gifts. That is, unless they were trying to piss him off. Regret flashed in Onal's eyes, but he recovered quickly. Garland and Pablo looked at each other with a weird expression. O'Neill had originally planned to present one fruit, but then he decided to offer another after learning of Suaping's identity. The fruits were so rare that not even the Ryan family had a large stock. The Ryans had in fact offered such fruits to many honorable guests in the past 100 years, there weren't many of them left. "Apart from the 2 transcendence fruits, I have a piece of intelligence that I wonder if you'll be interested in," said O'Neill uneasily. At first he thought that the young man would be interested in the news. However, he was no longer as confident after learning that he was a trainer. After all, most trainers would mostly focus on training their pets, they rarely went out on risky adventures. "What is it?" asked Suaping. "A collapsing vortex was recently detected at the edge of Zero Prun. It was at first believed to be a small black hole, but it turned out to be a mysterious realm." O'Neill continued telepathically in a low voice, "After some investigation, it's been found that there's an ancient divine residence inside that mysterious realm. The place emanates a dazzling light, which indicates the presence of great treasures. The news has yet to spread. I learned it from a senior Star Lord I'm familiar with." While talking, he looked at Suaping and added, "Quite a few Star Lords are currently cracking open the defense mechanisms outside the mysterious realm. The best treasures will naturally belong to them, but we can still take things they're not interested in." "A divine residence in the void?" Suaping was surprised. "An ancient divine residence? Are there good items in it?" Suaping wasn't too interested in mysterious realms. After all, the cultivation sites he had access to equaled to countless mysterious realms. However, some of the natives in those mysterious realms had already claimed the treasures. They were so strong that Suaping was unable to take the treasures away despite going through countless resurrections. Suaping had obtained a lot of treasures from the demigod burial only because of Joanna's help. Otherwise, the local experts would have already claimed the unusual treasures, and he couldn't have picked so many of them in the wilderness. Well, to call them good is an understatement. They're spectacular. O'Neill was shocked by Suaping's question. He instantly continued, "Some of the ancient mysterious realms flow out of the deeper space and appear anywhere in the universe when their restrictions have loosened. Some of the famous mysterious realms have so many treasures that not even ascendant state experts can exhaust them. Such mysterious realms are all under the control of the major forces. They are used as training sanctuaries. The smaller mysterious realms are also controlled by top experts and large forces, but that unowned mysterious realm has just been found and is open to all of us. Based on the intelligence I've acquired, it might belong to the primordial era. It's very likely that it contains lost secret techniques. Training techniques, runes, and pills of ancient celestials may be available. Even Star Lord seniors would be interested." Suaping narrowed his eyes, as he truly felt tempted. He asked, "Must be very dangerous going there, right? Otherwise, all the treasures would have been taken away." "There are indeed dangers, but I don't know how severe they are." O'Neill wasn't surprised to hear that. After all, trainers would never be as bloodthirsty as the battle pet warriors. A battle pet warrior would have been trembling with excitement after hearing the news, they wouldn't have considered the dangers. Battle pet warriors grew through experiencing dangerous battles. It came with the territory. Suaping glanced at him, deep in thought. He wondered if that was a trio the guy had set for him. "I'll think about it," he said. O'Neill wasn't surprised. If Suaping were a battle pet warrior, his intelligence would have been a great help and could have been worth a transcendence fruit. However, it seemed that the information wasn't as intriguing as he thought. Tong Tong, come here. Seeing Pablo, Suaping suddenly thought of something and summoned Zhongling Tong to him. Sir. Zhongling Tong greeted him obediently. Then, she looked at the visitors curiously. She knew Garland, and was surprised to see the Star State big shot again. This is the master trainer I found for you. You will learn about pet training from him for now, said Suaping. He also said to Pablo, take good care of her. I will examine her homework once in a while. Pablo looked at Zhongling Tong and found that she was rather cute. Feeling relieved, he said, I will. He was slightly puzzled. Why was Suaping giving his own student away? To test his sincerity? Zhongling Tong looked at Suaping and said reluctantly, can I come back to see you? Of course, Suaping smiled and said, anytime. I'm not selling you off. You will still be on Ria. Zhongling Tong was relieved. That's good to know. Work hard and try to become a master trainer someday, so that you can come back and help me, said Suaping with a smile. Of course. Suaping saw off Pablo, O'Neill, and the other visitors. Zhongling Tong also left, following her new teacher. Tang Ruin was quite reluctant to see her go. They had already become besties after having spent such a long time together while working in Suaping's shop. They were even closer since they were foreigners on a strange planet. After Zhongling Tong left, Tang Ruin approached Suaping and implored with a pair of glittering eyes, can you find a teacher for me too? No. Suaping declined without even looking at her. Why not? Tang Ruin couldn't help but ask. Who's going to work for me if you're gone? I can always come back in my spare time. No, Suaping said matter-of-factly, you're just a temporary employee, there's no contract between us, and I'm not giving you any salary. However, you must carry out your duties as an employee and work for our shop devotedly. How can you do other things? How can you possibly be this shameless, talking like that? What a goddamn capitalist! Tang Ruin glared at Suaping with puffed cheeks. She quickly gave in to disappointment, as Suaping didn't notice her at all, he was simply focused on sorting the ledgers. He didn't even bother to raise his head when her eyes were already sore. What a leech! A gloomy and angry Tang Ruin turned around and left. Suaping glanced at her back, thinking that it was indeed time to give her some training. Otherwise, the aura of potential Star State customers could horrify her, she couldn't possibly work well under such circumstances. Do I have to repeat what I did? But I had a system item that helped erase her memories last time. I don't have the item anymore. Speaking of system items, the store should have been refreshed by now, right? Tempted by the possibility, Suaping was going to check for new items, but then a few magnificent auras approached the shop. Hey? Suaping narrowed his eyes and looked outside. He was quite sensitive when it had to do with killing intent. Some of the strangers were Star State warriors who were openly radiating a killing intent. Are they here for trouble? This is the place. 3 strangers landed outside the shop. Their nonchalant faces changed when they saw the long line outside the shop. They had seen shops with booming sales, but none as popular as this one. The customers waiting in line were too many. The queue actually stretched out almost beyond the scope of their senses, almost reaching the city limits. A young man in a white robe narrowed his eyes and said, I can't detect what's inside this shop. There's indeed something off about it. The muscular middle-aged man in the middle frowned and said, don't be rash. The barriers of this shop are rare. You can't buy them if you don't have a powerful background. He reached such a conclusion because he found that his senses were also unable to penetrate the shop's wall. He had a Star State cultivation, and had practiced secret techniques for advanced perception. And yet, he couldn't detect anything, apart from what his eyes could see. "Go and ask the shop owner to talk with us here," said the middle-aged man in a low voice. He didn't step into the shop, as he was afraid that there might be fatal traps within. There was a change in the white-robed young man's expression, but he didn't dare to defy the order. He also didn't think the guy would be bold enough to attack him. The young man stepped out and shouted without entering the shop, "Anyone inside? Come out!" All the people in the queue were astonished to see that happen. They had noticed that the strangers were extraordinary. The white-robed young man in particular, he didn't bother to cover his fate state cultivation. He was obviously stronger than all the others. It was for that reason that the strangers weren't yelled at for cutting in line when they had just arrived. The others would have shouted if someone else would have moved to the front of the queue. The customers in the queue whispered. "Did they come here looking for trouble? They're truly bold. The boss is a Star State warrior. He can easily smash and kill the likes of you. Tisk, tisk. Are they members from the Rein family? That doesn't make any sense. Didn't the Reins make peace with the shop? You can tell from their hair color that they're not from the Rein family or even this planet. They seem to be foreigners." The three strangers' ears twitched upon hearing Star State. The young man who had shouted was both stunned and shocked. Is there a Star State expert in the shop? He couldn't help but look back at the middle-aged behind him, and was finally relieved to see the confidence on the latter's face. "Hey!" Suo Ping had already gone to the shop's door. He easily recognized that two of the strangers were at the top of the fate state and had a vast amount of energy. They were a lot stronger than peak fate state individuals that Suo Ping had ever seen. The person in the middle, however, was a Star State expert concealing his strength. "Why are you making such a fuss here?" asked Suo Ping. Tang Ruin tagged along, eager to watch the drama. "You're here." The white-robed young man recognized Suo Ping immediately. Not expecting to find him that quickly, he said, "Did you kill a student from my academy in the city suburbs?" "The suburbs?" Suo Ping rolled his eyes when he heard that, quickly figuring out their identity. "You're from the Humia Academy?" "Yes. I'm the one who killed her." Suo Ping admitted it openly. Suo Ping's words exploded like a bomb. The customers who had been whispering in the queue were stunned. They could only look at the three strangers in shock. They were from the Humia Academy, one of the 5 best academies. It was an academy full of talents. Any of their students was a 1 in a billion genius. Their distinguished students could easily defeat enemies above their level. Most of them reached the Star State when they graduated, some even became Star Lords. Any Star Lord was strong enough to dominate an entire galaxy. Suo Ping, however, had killed a student from the Humia Academy. Imagine the trouble he had gotten himself into. Everybody looked at Suo Ping in shock. They knew that Suo Ping was a Star State expert, but such a move was still too bold. "And you still try to deny?" "Hey!" Halfway through his sentence, the white-robed young man was left in shock. He admitted what he did just like that? He didn't bother explaining a thing. The young man said gloomily, "Do you know the consequences for killing a student from my academy? Do I have to answer for it with my own life?" Suo Ping chuckled. His mood became sour after learning that they were people from the Humia Academy. Still, he actually looked casual and approachable when he was angry. He was reminded that the foreigners that went to the Blue Planet during the Abyss battle were also from the Humia Academy. They had gone to the Blue Planet to recruit students, ignoring the planet itself and simply taking away the carefully chosen geniuses without showing any intention of helping. Well, they weren't morally obliged to help. Even considering their statuses as members of the academia, they had no sympathy for the lives of an entire planet that at the time was in great danger. Even if such an academy had produced ascendant state experts, Suo Ping would still despise it. If the students didn't even know how to be human, how could they become real experts? They are merely pathetic creatures who blindly pursue strength. Not just your own life, but also your family's, declared the white-robed young man coldly, How can the life of a mortal compare to that of a student from my academy? They are the best geniuses, millions of times more valuable than ordinary people. Is that so? Su Ping chuckled and said, she was just an ant for my ants. So much for the 1 in a billion genius. You! The white-robed young man burst into fury. He didn't expect the murderer to be that arrogant. He acted so bold and unrepentant, even after knowing they were from the Humia Academy. You think you can do anything you want because some Star State warrior is backing you? Not even Star State experts can possibly make such bold declarations, said the young man furiously. Even the most proud men would always respect his identity whenever they met. That was the first time that the name of his alma mater had no deterrent effect. If so, you must apologize and compensate, said the middle-aged man indifferently, but you're not a Star State expert. Not only did you kill a student of my academy, you have also insulted it. So, you must die. Your friends and your family will also die along with you because of what you said. Even if the Star State person behind you wants to step in, a price will have to be paid. The Star State person behind me. Su Ping chuckled and looked back. Anna, someone is asking you to pay a price. Is that so? Said an indifferent voice. Then, a gorgeous woman with long, blonde hair walked to the door. The sunlight on the entire street seemed to have been eclipsed by her all of a sudden. She carried the unparalleled and unworldly beauty that fascinated every man. The white-robed young man narrowed his eyes, all that he could see was the blonde woman. The customers standing in line were equally stunned. Those who had previously seen Joanna were able to keep their cool, but the rest were out of sorts. Hey! The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. He then quickly detected a special and sacred air coming from the woman. That was divine power. There's divine power inside the woman? The middle-aged man was quite shocked by such a finding. Divine power was an extremely rare kind of energy in the universe, only found in certain mysterious realms or black holes. Even if you were part of the Humia Academy, you would need a lot of merits in order to exchange for divine power. Not even the top students were able to get much. On the other hand, the girl was overflowing with divine power, she definitely had a lot of it. Who's looking for me? Joanna indifferently, majestically, and gracefully glanced at the strangers outside of the shop. The middle-aged recovered and adopted a solemn attitude. Although he sensed that the woman was not a Star State warrior, she claimed that she was and the customers present were whispering, so she had to be. Nevertheless, she had disguised herself so well that even he was unable to gauge her real level. That was remarkable. Plus, the intense divine power. She must hail from a powerful background. He took a deep breath and said calmly, Madam, what's your name? Which ascendant state expert is behind you? You're not qualified to learn my name, said Joanna indifferently, greedily seeking the tiny bit of corrupted divine power, you are just a poor and filthy mortal. The middle-aged man's face had a slight change of expression as he was incensed by such remarks, but what Joanna said next surprised him. She can detect the divine power in my body? Corrupted? My divine power is of the highest quality. Do you know the consequences of challenging the Humia Academy? I don't think you'd be willing to make a greater fuss and have whoever behind you show up. The middle-aged man added gloomily, the president of my academy is an ascendant state expert. Some of our top alumni are also ascendant state warriors. Have you really considered the consequences? All the people in the queue were sobered up by what he said, waking up from the trance caused by Joanna's enticing face. They collectively held their breath. The ascendant state. That was too distant. Whenever they stomped, the entire Federation would experience an earthquake. Su Ping chuckled and said, do you think the Humia Academy can be arrogant just because your president is at the ascendant state? Me, challenge you? Sorry, it never crossed my mind, but feel free to think whatever you like. On the other hand, do you think you're qualified to speak on behalf of the Humia Academy? This reply gave the middle-aged man pause, his expression slightly changing again. Indeed, he wasn't qualified to represent the academy, especially when Suaping and the woman's backgrounds were unclear. They undoubtedly had a huge force behind them. Even if such a force didn't have Ascendant State warriors, it would surely have Star Lords. A Star Lord was still horrifying enough. While the Humia Academy was powerful, it had a lot of students, they preferred to avoid making enemies everywhere. It would be unwise to piss off a force backed by a Star Lord. After all, while some of the top students had the potential to become Star Lords, that was just the potential. Their number wasn't at all large. Not just the Star Lords, even the Star State warriors were also much more revered than the students were. Only the most distinguished students were able to reach the Star State, and they might die in the process. They were naturally less important than those who had actually reached the Star State. I can't represent my academy, but you've murdered a student of my academy and must answer for it with your life according to the rules, said the middle-aged man as he looked at Joanna. There are specific compensation methods if you want to save his life. Suaping smiled and said, compensation? Indeed, you should compensate me. Your student attempted to rob me of my pet. That's insubordination. I was lenient enough since I merely killed her. Since you're here, just apologize on her behalf, and I'll forgive your poor education. The white-robed young man was dumbfounded. Have you lost your mind? You want us to apologize? What insubordination? You're just an Ocean State warrior, not a Star State one. What if I am a Star State warrior? Suaping smiled. Since everybody thought that he had such a rank, might as well make use of the identity. You're at the Star State. The white-robed young man was stunned. That statement could not be made randomly. He would be offending all the Star State experts if he were pretending. It would be like a rogue impersonating a Grandmaster. How could the other Grandmasters not be infuriated? Of course, isn't the boss a Star State expert? They didn't know that the boss is at the Star State. From what I've heard, it was a student from that academy who tried to rob the boss of his pet. What a stupid thing to do. Indeed. Not even a student from such a prestigious academy would have acted so arrogantly. You cannot piss off someone at the Star State like that. The customers in the queue whispered to each other in low voices. The white-robed young man was stunned after overhearing their whispers. The middle-aged man's face changed yet again. They had thought that the blonde woman was the only Star State expert. But, could it be that the young man himself is at the Star State? If so, it was indeed unreasonable for their student to rob him of his pet. If the gap between two parties was too wide, no reasons were needed. However, if they were in a similar position, they would have to reason it out. It was a rule in that world. The middle-aged man was silent for a moment, before he said, if you are a Star State warrior, our student shouldn't have offended you. Let's just drop it. If you're not, you should know the consequences of pretending to be a Star State warrior, shouldn't you? Let's drop it. As I said, you need to apologize to me. Do you honestly think you can just yell at me and then get away like nothing happened? Said Suaping, narrowing his eyes. The middle-aged man changed his expression and snorted. Cut the nonsense. Let's see how good you are. Then, he suddenly threw a punch and the space cracked, unleashing the power of laws. Suaping felt a solid stream of power. He didn't know what law it was, but he extended his hand and pointed his finger. The law of space. The power of law slashed out quickly like sharp blades. The energy collided inside the invisible void, resulting in a deafening explosion. The blast was so powerful that the entire street shook.